George Kilpatrick Inspiration for the Nation, celebrating people we feel good about. Sharon Sherman has been on the case for you, tenants in the city of Syracuse and beyond who need your help. She's the executive director of the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network. And so Sharon and I run into each other all the time, actually for years, under a variety of things. But today we're talking about the work that she's been doing on behalf of those of you who need housing support and assistance in the community. So Sharon, first, let's start with what the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network is and what it does.
Well, the Tenant Network was founded by tenants in 1988. And in 1994, we became a 501c3 organization, and I was the executive director. And the purpose, it was founded by people who lived in HUD multifamily, and that would be like Section 8 housing. So everything from Parkside Commons, some buildings that have been closed, Kennedy Square, Cherry Hill, but also people that might live in senior buildings. We have people on our board that live in Bishop Ludden apartments, O'Brien Road apartments. So it's a mix of people who live in that housing and want to speak for themselves, want to be empowered. But since we're the only agency of our kind in Central New York, and really the only agency doing this in upstate New York, people call us with ordinary questions, and I try to answer them and give them a good referral. We also do various educational things, and that's what we're about.
Yeah, all right. So when you say various educational things, our audience may not know what those various educational things are.
Okay.
But before we get to that, though, let's talk about what you do with the tenants, because what are the kinds of concerns that tenants often bring to your attention, and then what do you do for them? Let's start with what are they talking about?
In these large apartment complexes, typically a tenant or two or three might call and they have problems. And very often we've heard other people of problems in those buildings. And after a while, and this is what happened at Skyline, I say to some of these people, well, you have more power together. And they agree that they would like to form a tenant association. So we bring people together in meetings that every tenant's invited to. We elect democratic leadership of the association, and we typically try to work with the management and owner to improve conditions that affect many tenants in the building. And that's our main, that's what we were founded by these tenants that founded our organization.
One of the things, so you're not going anywhere that the tenants don't request. I think that's interesting.
Right, because we're an empowerment model. So tenants, as I'm often told by the tenants, you don't live here. And you know what? They're right. They can speak and articulate their concerns better than I can. What we give them is technical support. I talk like I am their staff person. So the association speaks for itself, but I can get things done, write emails, contact, code enforcement, fair housing, other agencies, legal services, but it all comes from what the tenants say. When we have a tenant meeting, we write down concerns that are affecting a lot of people. We really can't get involved in individual concerns. We're trying to represent everyone. And then most typically, the board of that group, we try to meet with the owner. We don't start out by agitating outside. We believe, and in HUD buildings, for a long time, HUD has felt that the tenants, the ownership, and HUD are partners. And so we try to do that. Sometimes it's impossible. And as we'll talk about soon, but we've had a lot of improvements in a lot of buildings, and tenants need information about what their rights are, and sometimes management needs information about what their responsibilities are, and that's what we do.
What's the typical call? The call you get most often?
Well, there's a difference between, so I do get calls that do not end up in starting a tenant association, and we get as many as 20 or 30 calls per week that I answer, every one of them. Although I do appreciate if people will email me first, because then I know what they want. Right now, oh my God, in the last year, a dramatic increase in people saying, my landlord's raising my rent. Is this legal?
Right.
Well, it is legal
Yes.
in state New York.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, rents have risen over 20% in 1 year. And so it is a shock to people. The next common thing is often about physical conditions.
Yeah.
And,
Like the landlord won't fix this, or the elevator
right,
doesn't work, or it
right,
smells like urine, or there's
right,
right.
right, all that stuff. And so, first, if it's in a private housing, a smaller property, well, have you talked to the landlord? Yeah, you call them 20 times, they never do anything. Then you suggest that perhaps they should call code enforcement. Tenants are concerned that if they call code enforcement,
They'll get
it
evicted.
will be evicted or terminated.
Yeah.
But the truth is, that's your only option if it's bad enough. If you're not getting heat, if you're not getting hot water, if you're infestated, do you want to continue living in substandard conditions? And why it's not going to work to stay there if you don't get these fixed.
Right.
There is state laws that say you can't retaliate. There's the city of Syracuse codes that say, the state building codes say it, but it does happen. Although,
So
it's not as often as people think. And one thing I found, especially in tenants associations, the leaders are not picked on. They're bought up sometimes. The landlord feels, oh, if I take care of the problem in the tenant president's apartment, they'll stop. But you got to do it,
I'm thinking that it's so funny when I moved to Syracuse for the first time, way back, way back, right? And the term flats, right? You have a lot
Yeah,
of, which is apartments, but I didn't know
right.
that's what it was, right?
A
Um,
flat,
flats. So there's a lot of flats, right? And
right,
so those are individual homeowners, or even if it's a group, right? Which makes it more difficult because you can't form a tenants association
right.
necessarily if it's an individual landlord, which I'm sure you help those individual cases as well. Doesn't that it makes it harder? And we have a lot more flats, it seems, than multifamily or multi-unit, or maybe that's my perception.
Right. Well, our agency was founded to mostly help the people that are in either subsidized housing, or in the case of private low-income housing,
Mm-hmm.
lower income. So that's how we got involved with Skyline, Chestnut, and the others. And there's been some other buildings. So the person I was discussing was the individual tenant who calls me and has physical, code enforcement problems. And there, if they can't get through to the landlord to fix it,
Mm-hmm.
I advise contacting code enforcement. And, you know, the code enforcement for the city of Syracuse is the best in my 30 years that I've ever dealt with. They have really an excellent director and assistant director who are constantly open to talking to the public, the tenants, about their complaints. So, they try very hard to get action for people. Some mostly it succeeds.
You mentioned Skyline a couple of times. Of course, Skyline Apartments on James Street was recently sold. They used to be in
Hasn't been
the
sold yet.
not been okay. So talk to me about where that is because it's been reportedly sold by the Green family. Tim
Okay,
Green and his family own a couple of
okay.
those buildings. What's the status there?
Well, at the point at which the city was in court to put a receiver in, a deal was struck with a company called Clear Development, which was insisted on by the judge that you strike a deal or I'm reporting a receiver. But the deal was that they would turn over management to this prospective buyer. And that was April 1st. And we are on July 12th. And the buyer has been unable to close the deal with the Greens on the 4 different properties. So they're trying very hard. They're hoping to close some of this in the next 2 weeks, but they're in a peculiar situation because their company makes their money by investing and turning around developments. And then sometimes even they sell it to a new owner at the time that everything's renovated. It's people are paying rent and they're done. But until they close on the deal, their investors, they've been supporting them and paying so they can pay for trash pickup and pay for the electrical bill and pay for the security. But the big money will come in once they own it. So it's a very complex, difficult situation because they don't have the resources to do a complete turnaround.
So how are you advocating for the tenants there? Because here's what I'm thinking. Those tenants who they want the tenants out of the building so that they could do that work. But if you're working on behalf of the tenants, where's your position in this?
Well, first of all, the tenant association started in 2018 when the Greens were around. It was February 2019 that Connie Torrey was murdered and attention got more formally onto the Greens. And there was a nuisance abatement. The Greens agreed to do certain things on security. And all along, the aim of the tenants, especially the people who are active in the association, was preserve their homes and be able to stay. That has not happened. This is the only case where I've seen such a tragic situation and outcome. So we could do nothing about the intention of them to empty the skyline. However, they got to do it by laws that we have in New York State that are very pro-tenant. So at this point, they have not taken anyone to court. I don't feel that the 90-day notice they posted on every door was a proper 90-day notice, served properly to the person with their name on it, blah, blah, blah. And now they're going around making threats. But in order to remove someone from the building, they have to file a legal case. And under the laws that were changed, sponsored by our Assemblywoman Pam Hunter, it now takes, rather than 8 days to evict someone, 38 days. So from the minute they do their first 14-day notice delivered by a marshal, the shortest it could be is 38 days before the marshal is back, changing the lock on the door. So they got to start all that. So
let's look at what the tenants are. Sharon, they're going to have to go, right? Is unfortunately.
Right. Well, 2/3 of them have left.
Have left. Okay.
So there are people out of the 100 left. There are squatters, people who have never had a legal agreement.
Right.
Yeah. Some people might have been in an apartment paid for by Helio. Helio removed their support and the tenants have remained illegally. No one's paying the rent.
Is that Skyline?
And there are people who, since things have gotten really bad with the Greens, have stopped paying rent. People who are living in an apartment that they never leased And so there's that portion of the 100.
Right.
And then there are many tenants who are struggling to find a new place to live.
Right.
And
There was
everyone is a different story.
yeah, because there was a story. Reportedly there was this couple in their 70s, for example, who said where they're going. And when you think about the housing market, where would these? I mean, and so this displacement by tenants is not like what the housing authority is saying that they're going to do, which is we're going to remove the housing, but then you'll have first dibs to come back. That's not the same. That's not what they're
Well, that's
talking
not
about.
even the point that when when Cherry Hill was closed, Kennedy Square was closed, and especially when the LJ portfolio was closed, relocation specialist companies were brought in, and they, from outside, they met with every single tenant as soon as the decision was reached by HUD, and they helped them relocate. There might have been some moving money, there might have been different things, but they were counselors and took the time, and it took a long time. It wasn't like there was a deadline that you're fighting. HUD feels that if they close a building, which is rare, they have a responsibility to assist the people in relocating.
Mm-hmm.
So that could have been done, but it would be money. And they could have asked the city to assist them with providing through certain agencies that work with them this relocation assistance. But they just said, oh, you're out, you're on your own, find a place.
Yeah, that's not
a chaotic mess.
Yeah. So in your role then, or I should say, so how do those people get so who can support them in getting that relocation assistance, or are they just on their own?
Some of the people already had some sort of case management. They were associated with an agency.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even at the Samaritan Center, they have case managers.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone came for meals there, they could get some help from somebody. But there's some people that are there now who haven't even started, and we don't even know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I know that some people have moved to Toomey Abbott.
Okay.
Some people have moved down the street to a place called Case and Place.
Mm-hmm.
We know of one person who, I know through an agency is going to be moving to Brighton Towers, but hasn't moved yet. Mm-hmm. So over the course of time, there have been some people, even with the tight housing, who have located housing. Now we have people, and we also have about 50 people who were told by Clear that if they had been good tenants paying rent and they kept paying April, May, June, that they were going to be moved to Clear's, to the Chestnut Crossing property or the James. And those would be renovated apartments, and you would get a year's lease. And at the end of the year, the skyline would be renovated and you could move back to the skyline.
Mm.
However, it turns out that they never were able to find the resources to renovate any apartments at Chestnut Crossing. And also the elevator that was ordered for the 7th-floor apartment building called 600 James, it was ordered, but it takes 5-6 months. There is no elevator in that building that's 7th floor.
Mm.
So those people who did not look for housing, relying on Clear development to move them, are now shockingly finding out that there's no place for them to go, and they're starting their search.
Mm.
It's a mess.
It's a mess. I mean, it's a total mess. And so giving that, how do you see your role empowering these tenants, and not only in this situation?
The tenant association is done. Yes, we haven't had a meeting since one time during COVID. We met in the parking lot, and then we called a meeting April 1st, And the management's like, oh, you can't have it. We have to be there. But with the help of the city, we met first with the tenants, and we had someone from legal services there. And then later, after about a half hour, we allowed Clear Development and the city to come in, and they talked to the tenants. But that's when they said things like, anyone could stay who's a good tenant, we'll find you.
Right.
And none of their dreams or none of their plans turned out the way they thought it would be. So right now, we're waiting for any legal action. Each tenant will get a free legal service attorney, and that will be the final battle place. But under that 2018 law, if the judge says, well, this tenant is diligently looking for an apartment, I'm not granting you an eviction. Another month, but they have another 2 months.
Right.
I mean, this will be drawn out, but our agency, I'm just referring, and the city, if we identify people who need help in an informal kind of way, we're trying to connect them with somebody who would help. It might be someone from the Department of Aging, Neighborhood Advice. It could be.
But your basic job and role is to empower tenants and mostly low income housing, and in this particular case at Skyline, providing informal representation to help them get on their way, because this is a situation that, when you think about it, it's well, I think you said it earlier, it's a mess. So in those situations where it's not a mess and you're providing the help and support and empowerment, how should people call you, and what should they call you about? And you were saying to me in a different conversation about, even when someone says I'm being evicted, what does that mean? Right. And so you do education. Yeah, so we talked about
many people call me and say I'm being evicted. So I go through saying, well, did you get a letter from your landlord terminating your lease? Well, normally they can do that at the end of the lease, or if you're month to month with proper legal notice, they can say, we don't want to rent to you. It's a two-way agreement, just like you can say at any time with proper notice, I'm out of here. If they say, no, my landlord is taking me to court. Well, did you get a 14-day notice? If they got a 14-day notice, we're immediately referring them to the proper legal service. We have several legal services, and one of them does subsidized and anyone outside of the city, and the other one just does city tenants. And it's not by law or anything. It's just, it's easier for everyone. And I think due to funding, the one that only does the city gets a lot of money from the city. So it depends what they say, how I can advise them. And if they call and they say, I have a court date tomorrow, if it's city court, I say, well, there's going to be people from the volunteer lawyers right outside the door of the courthouse, the courtroom, and you go to them and they will get you through your first part of the process.
Yeah. Well, you also mentioned briefly that there is, you provide case management assistance as well.
If I'm working in a building. So let's say we have a tenant association at a building, and the tenant is now having trouble, something with their lease or their rent, or getting something fixed. Because of that relationship we've built with the owner management, sometimes I will write an email to the management and say, hey, so-and-so, this is the problem. And if it's a good management company and they want to work together, things will get resolved. So that's the only time we really get involved. And we're not really there to help individual people. We're here to help the association.
And I'm also talking about the work you provide to other, you do provide technical assistance to other agencies as well.
Yes, so we do training for case managers from any group, any case manager. And we do that periodically. And it's not me talking, it's bringing in legal services, fair housing, health department about lead, all different things, and even the Department of Aging, because they have so many services in our community for 60 and over. But these case managers don't have any idea that when their client turns 60, there's so many more transportation assistance, senior lunch programs, exercise programs, they just don't know that they can help so much more their client because, hey, they're now 60 and they get a lot more help. So we run these sessions just to help people whose job, maybe you're a health home care manager, so you're not an expert in housing. So that's why we do it. And we also run training for landlords
as well. All right. So for people who want to know how to get a hold of you and to start a tenants association, what do they have to do?
Or answer a question
Or answer a
that
question.
they personally have. You would call our number, which you want me to say the
what's
number?
the number? Yep.
315-475-8092. And what people need to know is I'm one person. And so please leave a message. We have 2 phone lines. If I'm talking on one, you might as well leave a message. And also, if you're good enough at it to write an email and say, oh, I need advice about blah, 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 it is helpful. And if you prefer, I just email you. So email is info@syracusetenant.org.
Info@syracusetenant.org.
Yes.
Info@syracusetenant.org. And what's that phone number again if you're a tenant and need help?
315-475-8092.
Sharon Sherman is the Executive Director of the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network. How long you been at this, Sharon?
30 years, except when we ran out of money, I worked for the city for 6 years and did this part-time and had a worker. So, but basically since it was founded.
There you go.
Yeah.
Greater Syracuse Tenants Network, empowering tenants. She's not coming unless you ask her. Inspiration for the nation. Keep up the good work, Sharon. Thank you for the work you do.